Kevin McCarthy's job in jeopardy as far-right House members turn up the heat on the Speaker. I'm Kana Whitworth here in Los Angeles. In today's big story, McCarthy under pressure from Matt Gaetz and other Republicans waging a push to remove him. Can the GOP leader weather the storm, and will he turn to Democrats to help him again? I'll speak with Republican Congressman from Texas, Pete Sessions, about McCarthy's future and the next spending showdown looming on the Hill. And in our spotlight, tens of millions of Americans on the hook again as student loan repayments resume. The impact on struggling borrowers caught in America's college debt crisis. But of course, we begin with our big story here. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy under pressure as far-right Republicans wage a push to oust him. So joining us now here is GOP Congressman from Texas, Pete Sessions. Thank you so much for being with us, Congressman. And let me first ask you, what is your reaction here to this possible motion to remove McCarthy from his post altogether?
This is not a new issue for Kevin. Kevin has been faced with this for quite some time. This is part of what comes with the failures of last November's elections. Mr. McCarthy said we win by 60, then he said we would win by 20. We ended up winning by 5, and that was the beginning of many people questioning the resiliency of not just our majority, but of his ability to lead. And then since then, it has been, while I've seen great flashes of good policy from not only Kevin, but the management team, the leadership team here, he has continued to be a part of the problem as we have had them getting votes and our agenda done.
Part of the problem. Well, Congressman, you voted, though, for McCarthy's temporary spending measure over the weekend. And we've seen, though, in the meantime of, as you mentioned, all this, kind of Republican infighting. Your GOP colleague, Mike Lawler of New York, on ABC's This Week just yesterday, went so far as to call Matt Gaetz' moves against McCarthy delusional thinking. So why can't Republicans unite, work with Democrats if that's needed, and find a long-term spending solution that can pass both chambers?
Well, that's an entirely different issue. If you want to talk about that, what we would need to go to is the issue of the fight that they have with Kevin McCarthy. The fight that they have with Kevin McCarthy essentially goes back to the debt limit when Mr. McCarthy did this almost exact same thing where he negotiated instead of for spending, he negotiated for time frames that would be for jamming as much spending to debt as was chosen by January of a full year from now in 25. And that's where people, a lot of them fell off the wagon. Look, I'm not for chaos. I'm for the success of our organization. But they have continued not to negotiate with the people that are not in his favor and that oppose him. And I think that we're seeing the frailties of that now.
Frailties. And let's talk about Donald Trump here. He was in court in New York today for the start of his civil fraud trial. The judge is already ruling that he lied to banks, insurers, and others for years about his net worth and his assets. So what does it mean for the future of your party when your primary frontrunner, leading by double digits in the polls, but his future is tied up in courts?
Well, I think it is. I think it is tied up in court. And while I know few of the real facts of the case, everyone can see this for what it is and has been able to see this ever since the day he was elected. And the bottom line to this is that if he defaulted on things and did not pay loans, I think that is a problem. I have no clue what the facts of the case are, but their values go up and down wildly in on commercial properties, and in particular in New York City. So it is going to be experts against experts and knowledge against knowledge. But I think it all gets down to if he did not pay some loans where he either over or misunderstated those numbers, I think he is in trouble.
And now you sit on the House committee leading the impeachment inquiry against President Biden, looking into his family business dealings, specifically those of his son Hunter. The president there, of course, denies any wrongdoings, but these allegations have essentially been swirling around for years. And even last week, the panel's own witnesses is questioning the amount of evidence that this committee actually has. So what do you say to Republicans who want an impeachment here and Americans as a whole who are concerned that this could end up being yet another distraction from the people's business?
Well, it is perhaps a valid question, but I think that if you looked at both sides of the equation, it is very clear that this is an inquiry to determine what the facts are. It is not an inquiry to go to a conclusion. And with that said, we know that for literally 2 years, we were told by 60 intelligence experts and admirals and generals that the Hunter Biden laptop was not true. It was a false story. And in fact, the FBI had it the entire time and knew what it was. The Department of Justice has aided and abetted Hunter Biden by not moving towards the president and his behavior like they would have anyone else. And when you fail to follow the same examples that you would in periods of law enforcement where you gather your data and evidence and you're stopped by the Department of Justice, which they were by the IRS, then it does lead questions, and that's why it's an inquiry as to the facts of the case. So we would expect now for the FBI to do the same thing that they do in all other matters, especially where there's an investigation like this, where the FBI will show up and they too will do an investigation and give that information to the United States House of Representatives.
Republican Representative Pete Sessions from Texas, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We truly appreciate it. Of course. And now I want to bring our big story to our panel. So joining us today is ABC News contributor Mike Muse, ABC News political contributor and former Republican Congressman from Virginia, Barbara Comstock, president of Next Gen America, Christina Sinsoon Ramirez, and ABC News contributing political correspondent and co-author of the Politico Playbook, Rachel Bade. Thank you all so much for being here. So Congress, as you know, has temporarily averted this government shutdown until November 17th. But the GOP is still divided over the budget. Barbara, to you first. You know, what do you make of Sessions' stance there on all of this? He said that he actually saw great flashes of good policy, but do you think that all of this that's happening with Matt Gaetz and these threats, I mean, is that being taken seriously on Capitol Hill?
No, I think really Matt Gaetz, I think it's been notable today that he's really standing alone. You're not seeing any members joining up with him. He did not file his motion today. Yesterday, when Donald Trump was asking about it, he notably said, well, Kevin McCarthy has said nice things about me this morning. And when you look at, say, Fox News and even the most right-wing talk radio, like Mark Levin, they are standing with Kevin McCarthy, and you're just not seeing the kind of support for Matt Gaetz. And the one thing that unites everybody in Washington is loathing for Matt Gaetz. So if you wanted to have a political enemy in Washington, Matt Gaetz is pretty much somebody that, you know, is pretty great to have because it unites everybody. And I really don't think Kevin McCarthy is going to have to worry about this. Matt Gaetz looks very weak and weaker by the day, and I don't think this motion to vacate is going to go anywhere.
All right, the one thing. So, Rachel, to you, we have this extension. We know it's not going to last forever, just till mid-November here. What are your sources telling you about a possible deal?
A possible deal to save McCarthy's speakership with Democrats?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it seems unlikely at this point. I mean, Matt Gaetz might be kind of on an island right now, but keep in mind that he only needs 5 friends right now if all Democrats vote against Kevin McCarthy. That means Kevin McCarthy is toast. So the big question is, does he have those 5? It appears that he might right now. Can Kevin McCarthy win them back? And if Kevin McCarthy can't, he's going to have to turn to Democrats for help. This is where things are going to get complicated for the speaker. Democrats, I talked to a whole bunch of them yesterday after Gaetz made this announcement, and every single one of them had nothing but negative things to say about Kevin McCarthy. They say say he's a liar, that he reneged on a White House deal on spending caps. They don't like that he began an impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden. And frankly, they just say that they can't trust him. But they are writing a bunch of wish lists, things that they could extract from McCarthy, a power sharing agreement, an end to the Biden impeachment if he turns to them for help. And these are things that if McCarthy gives them, he's going to lose additional Republican support, and more people will join Matt Gaetz.
Interesting. All right. And Mike, to you, meanwhile, of course, we have this fraud trial that's underway in New York City against former President Donald Trump. He continues to call it a witch hunt as he seeks another term in the White House. It seems, though, it's like he remains invincible in these polls. And he almost used the cameras today as some sort of campaign stop, it looked like.
That's what I was thinking too as well. It felt very much like almost like a stump speech. Former President Trump has not appeared to any of his other cases the way that he did in such grand style. He didn't miss an opportunity not to talk in front of the cameras and really frame this as a political stunt. And what's interesting, I was listening to your interview that you had with Representative Sessions. Yes. He also too isn't serving the American public well at all. He's also too feeding into this narrative that it's a political issue at hand versus a legal issue. So the more the Republican Party takes a position that this is more political, it reinforces what some people in the American public sees as a political stunt and not a legal stunt by not framing it in the legal ramification that it is. And unfortunately, Kana, I just think that no matter how many indictments goes before former President Trump, the American public, in particular those who vote Republican, only emboldens and gets them more excited to support him in moving forward. It's a really fascinating case study to observe in what's happening in real time.
Right. There's a lot of Americans out there that really do feel like they're witnessing the weaponization of the justice system in this. And Christina, to you, what do you make of the current snapshot of American politics here? I know that's an overarching question, but, we have Trump's legal woes, his impeachment inquiry into President Biden, a looming government shutdown. How do you think this is going to play out for voters?
Well, I think voters are watching what happens when Republicans are in charge. It's a circus, it's chaos. And ultimately, while people are discussing Kevin McCarthy's leadership role, I think I and most Americans don't actually care about his leadership role. What we care about is his impact of his lack of leadership on the American people, that his leadership is in question because he's allowed a far extreme right Republican Party to control what's happening. And what we have to remember is, yes, we have 45 days right now, and that's a great reprieve. But ultimately, the vast majority of the Republican Party supported a draconian spending bill that would have left 1 million children without food assistance, tens of thousands of veterans would have lost their homes, 60,000 seniors would have lost Meals on Wheels, and there would have been a 70% cut to heating assistance right before we enter winter. So I think that's what's on the minds of most American people, are the consequences of failed leadership like this when there's so much infighting within their own party.
Certainly. I think there's a lot of American people, though, too, that would also be concerned if we pass bills through without border security and things like that as well. So we'll, of course, keep our eyes on the Hill. Mike, Barbara, Christina, and Rachel, thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.